Hey, my name's Vaughn. Some of you probably know that if you're watching on my channel. With me today, this is the first time trying this. We are doing a Zoom meeting interview. This is Scarlet Sprites. Say hello, Scarlet
Hey,
Sprites.
what's up, everybody? Thanks for having me today.
Okay, Scarlet Sprites, much like myself, an elder YouTuber in a sea of, I don't know, teens. We're
Yeah, that Fortnite crew that's out
Oh
there.
gosh, yeah. Scarlett is a vintage gamer and a collector of arcade cabinets and especially Neo Geo uh, games, arcade machines, and even the new stuff from SNK. Maybe tell us a little bit about how you got started with the Neo Geo.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Neo Geo is kind of like it's like this gateway drug into arcade gaming, really. That's kind of, back in the day, seeing that big red cabinet, in the arcade and playing on it, and then realizing that, well, I could bring this home, but I can't afford that, and very few people could. The console, is upwards of $500, cartridges $200, but that lure was still there, in the arcade, seeing that machine and having the ability to like play on it from time to time when you get out to the arcade. And then just kind of getting older, and realizing that some of that stuff is within grasp because you're kind of making your own money, you're getting a little bit older, and you can kind of buy that stuff on your own. So it was always kind of one of those like mythical things, the Neo Geo. Schoolyard talk, I remember contests where you could win a Neo Geo. There was like all this AV gear that would be laid out that you could send a form, in, and you had to answer these questions. And there's like this projection screen TV, speakers, and all this huge rack of AV equipment. But all I'm looking at is that Neo Geo that they had sitting there. I was like, this is my one chance to own a Neo Geo. And
Are you talking about
uh,
that game show where it was like there was an arcade and they had a shopping spree at the end?
there's that, and then there was also like in magazines, like video game magazines, like towards the back few pages there'd be like these weird contests that you could send
What
stuff over.
what years were you looking at video magazines? Because like for me, it was 94 to maybe 98.
Yeah, like EGM and Game
I had
Pro.
yeah, I would get the occasional EGM
Yeah,
Game Players, Game Pro, and then in at the later end of that, I guess I had a Nintendo Power magazine.
yeah.
Uh, but the weird thing for people who are younger, the console wars, we're in the kind of post-apocalyptic era of it. Things were hot between Sega and Nintendo
Yeah,
in the 90s. Like it was a legitimate, you'd get in fights if you had a Genesis and you had to back the Genesis crew.
yeah.
But I didn't know anybody with both.
No, I agree with you.
My best friend had a Genesis, so I befriended him because he had a Genesis.
Yeah,
And me and a lot of other kids had the Super Nintendo, but he also had the Sega CD, and we
yeah.
didn't realize it at the time. I think he got the CD in like 93 or 94. My perspective of time was different than it is now, and it was like, whoa, it's the newest thing, the Sega CD. We're playing it in 94, like totally unaware that the Saturn is in Japan and things like that. And I mean, his uncle gave it to him, and we didn't realize he gave it to him because it sucked, because
Yeah.
the loading times were horrendous. Uh, but I had heard about the Neo Geo in one of the magazines because it would mention something. You'd see a Samurai Showdown ad in
Yeah.
EGM, and it'd be like SNK on the Neo Geo, and I'm like, what the hell's a Neo Geo? Like, oh, okay, I see the arcade ad. Okay, so it's an ad for an arcade. I had no idea until maybe sometime I was in college that there was a console,
Mm-hmm.
the Neo Geo AES, right? And
Yeah,
the MVS
that's
is
right.
the big red machine.
Yep.
I mean, the cabs, it made sense if you had space for a machine. You could get, usually I saw two or three, right? And I think it
Mm-hmm.
goes up to four games in a cab.
Yeah, there's a fours. I have a four slot. There's a six too, and the machine's massive for that. They're so wide. So many people end up like that
Okay,
try
so the
to get
six
those.
is a bigger bigger
It's
screen.
wider. It's
I didn't
wider.
know that.
Yeah, Yeah, and people can't get it through their doorways when that's always like a thing you see on forums and stuff. People trying to measure that and figure out what to do with it. It's massive.
So at what point did you get a Neo Geo? When did you get an MVS or
Yeah,
an
it's
AES and an MVS?
yeah. So I actually don't own an AES. I don't
Oh,
have
you
the home.
don't? Do you
I
have
don't.
the super gun? You just play them
No,
on this. Well,
I
makes
got the
sense, I
I've got
guess.
the consoleized I have a consoleized MVS board that I play the cartridges on, and then I have the arcade machine. But that was kind of like the plan, like probably like 12 years ago. I decided like I'm gonna get that damn machine. Like I'm gonna get that someday. And I started collecting the cartridges for it then. They were still relatively cheap, the MVS carts. They're a lot
What you
cheaper than
about what year? Maybe like 05-ish.
yeah,
See, there was a
yeah,
time
somewhere in there.
when it was like early mid 2000s. The arcades are not just dead. They're so you can't find an arcade, and the machines were just being like liquidated.
Yeah.
It was like, do you have a truck? You can have this. Like
Yeah.
that was as simple as it was. And I find it kind of remarkable that the that it's gotten to a point in the industry or from the fans or the collectors where people are building their basement arcade.
Hmm.
And it looks like you're doing some of that. You recent videos, you have acquired more machines. It looks like there's a virtual racer.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, uh, how did
Virtua
you come
Racing.
across that? Or is
Yeah.
yeah racing?
Yeah. Virtua Racing.
Was that 92? That's Sega Model
It's
One, right?
it is. It is a Model One.
Is that the only
It's
Model One game?
oh, you put me on the spot. Oh boy, I think Virtua Fighter is also a Model One game, and
Oh,
then
really?
Virtua Fighter Two is Model Two. I think. Yeah.
Well, if that's the
Um,
case, there was a what was it, Gun On or something? There was one with two sticks
oh,
that was right around that time. Was that maybe a Model One also? Virtua On.
Oh,
Is that
yeah. I used
yeah?
to play that too. That was a fun game. I used to play that at Hershey Park as a kid. I like that.
I hadn't played Virtua Racing until it was already old hat. It was probably around 96 or 97.
Okay.
They had a racetrack in Oklahoma City with an arcade, and this was horse races going on. And then you just send the kid down to the arcade,
Yeah.
and they had a lot of Sega stuff down there. They had uh, the Sega Die Hard arcade, and it was
Oh
on a
yeah.
giant ass screen. It was a big machine. They also had Virtual Racing with a car that you
Yep.
sat in.
I saw trashed one of those 2 weekends ago in a warehouse.
I can kind of understand that. It's a giant, that's a lot of floor real estate for something that's
Yeah.
not current. That's not going to wow like a 12-year-old with their
Yeah.
iPhone. Uh,
Yeah.
Thinking to the end of the arcade, when I would see machines laying around, I would see MVSs in front of a Target, like even outside, kind of like almost inside Target.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
you walk, it's like on the way in by the claw machine or
Yeah.
something. And I would see like a lot of rampages around
Yeah.
inside Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
And now I think one of the more common things I find is maybe like Namco's Time Crisis. It'll be Time
Oh
Crisis
yeah.
1, 2, or 3
Yeah.
somewhere in places. Um, I think that those machines that have the unique experience are really cool because you can't. Um, I don't think that you can bring Time Crisis home in the sense that I've loaded up a Super Nintendo Classic with all of the AES MVS titles,
Yep.
and for me that's good enough. I guess it feels like this weird dream to own all the arcade machines,
Yeah.
own kind of
Yeah.
to be able to have access to them. Like I never would have thought that would be possible in
Right.
the early 90s to be able to do that.
Absolutely not.
But
No.
you seem, do you have a complete legit collection of SNK's home? It looks like, are you getting mostly the AES games or the
The
MVS?
MVS games. So
Okay.
all the MVS is like they're all the arcade cartridges. They're like the black squares, the large black squares that you usually see. I mean,
Yeah,
they
they're
come out
very
of
industrial.
yeah, absolutely. They're not pretty to look at. They've got most of them have like black and white labels on them, you know, and but that's what I wanted, you know. When I started collecting, I was like, I'm going to get that machine. I'm going to play these cartridges in that machine someday.
So then you'd
Um,
have the like third-party dust covers
Yeah.
cases, so it looks like,
Yeah,
because
it
they didn't ship
dresses
in
them up.
anything but maybe like a cardboard
Those
box.
the cardboard boxes you kind of see.
Okay, I
Trying to what
got
I'm
you.
doing here
Yeah.
over my yeah. Yeah.
But that's the way you'd ship something if the packaging didn't matter, because
Yeah.
it's not going to the consumer in that way.
Right. Yeah, so they would come in those boxes, and they would basically have like the moves, the strips in them. That would show you how to do different things. There's like a flyer, and then there's like those little mini marquees that would go on the top of the
Mm-hmm.
MVS that would light up when you would select the game.
Because the MVS had almost like tiny movie posters that you could change
That's
out.
right.
It's like, what does it say, now playing,
Yep.
in a way, like a
Yep.
movie theater would. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah. I mean, back to virtual racing though, real quick. Like that was you asked how I came across that. It was actually on Facebook. A woman had it listed, and she wanted $400 for it. And
A few months ago or something.
this is about a year ago now at this point. I spent the last couple months like kind of going over it and just
That
kind of cleaning it up.
machine could have been 10 grand new.
Oh, it was a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of homework on it, and I'm forgetting the number. I want to say it was something crazy. It was like 40s, I think, somewhere in the like
Whoa.
40 grand.
I couldn't see from your video what you had, but was it a dual
Yeah,
cab type? Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
it's a
that
dual.
makes sense.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it was something like
I don't think I've ever seen one of those.
I want to see Boeing aircraft. I think helped with the design because I mean it was all polygon graphics, which was I mean
Well,
really
it's
cutting edge at the
understandable.
time.
I know that they had to have flight simulator stuff done, so it'd be Boeing or McDonnell Douglas possibility on that.
Yeah,
I think that I it's really hard to get good resources on some of these arcade stuff. There are people who I see their basement arcades and the restorations, and there are people who can make like a spot on Donkey Kong. And I there's an arcade in like the last couple of years, arcades have popped up in my area.
yeah,
So now we have an arcade that has mostly 80s and early 90s games. So stuff sans Polygon. They
yeah,
have a
yeah,
lot of it. They have the Robotron. They have, unfortunately, I and my allegiance wavers at times here. If am I team Mortal Kombat or team Street Fighter?
yeah,
And this arcade they really doubled down on the Mortal Kombat.
yeah.
So they've got like autographed, Boone autographed
Oh yeah,
board and stuff like that of Mortal Kombat, and they got like more of a midway tie-in. They got the NBA jams and things like that.
yep.
But speaking of Street Fighter, though, it looks like you recently acquired a Big Blue machine. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the Capcom Big Blue. That's always been one of those things that in an arcade too, that I would go in wanting to play Street Fighter, right? And I'd see the standard cab, like it usually came in like a Dynamo cab, which is a standard arcade machine. But I knew that that Big Blue existed. Like some of the bigger places like Hershey Park would have those locally to me. I was in California. I'd visit family out there in the summer and hit some of the amusement parks out there. They always had it. Like bigger places had those Big Blue cabinets, and I had been wanting to get one for a while. And last 4th of July, one popped up here locally in my area, and the guy wanted I want to say like $300 for it. And by the time I like texted him, it was gone. It was like
I
I mean
feel
you
like if there's no way it would sit at that price for
It's
long.
gone. It's
And
like
working.
it's just cutthroat. Oh yeah, it had Aliens versus Predator in it, and it was a working. So I mean, the board alone in that is you could just pull the board and sell it for that. Then alone to get a working monitor, a cab that was in decent shape. It had a 3-player layout on the control panel, so it was always something that I really was like I really want to get one of those for in the basement. And I came across a guy in a forum who had it, wanted to sell it, and I didn't want to pay for shipping because shipping these
Oh
things is
Jesus!
it's
Almost as
ridiculous.
much as the machine.
It pretty much you're right. That's pretty much what
Yeah.
happens. So, but I ended up eating it and I paid to have it like you know shipped over to my house.
Well, I don't have the arcade memories that maybe you do. Though I am obviously way older than you, jokingly. Uh,
I was gonna say I don't.
no,
Yeah,
but you probably had more access to go to the arcade. By the time
yeah,
I was driving, not a whole lot of arcades.
yeah,
There'd be a place at the mall, if that. But I was a console gamer, though I understood that if I went to the arcade, that's where the sweet graphics were.
yeah,
Now, if I see an arcade, it's like they have to make they kind of reverse engineered what they're doing with the games, where now they make a game specifically to be in the arcade through
yeah,
a license. Oh, hey, it's a first person shooter for Tomb Raider,
yeah,
just a reskin of something else, whatever. You see it like
yeah.
a Dave and Buster's, and that's the only thing I see coming to arcades at
Well,
this
yeah,
point.
you're absolutely right. I mean, back in the day, like that was where you went if you wanted to play something that was cutting edge, and you had a hope that when it
Probably a
came,
year sooner before it came, like
yeah,
Mortal
oh,
Kombat 92
easily.
comes to
Oh
console
yeah,
93.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you easily you had a hope that that port that came home was going to be somewhat, you know, okay, you know, and not yeah. And when we had Nintendo, like that's where things were really iffy at times. I mean, you think about like Double Dragon, like that's a great game on Nintendo, but it doesn't look the way
Oh,
the
it
arcade
sure,
does, you
yeah,
know?
it looks like a different art style
Right.
altogether.
Right. And it's an okay game on Nintendo. I mean, I don't mind. I loved it. I had it when I was a kid. I couldn't wait to get it, but it's different. And that's the area you're talking about where things were, if you wanted to see what was coming next and the graphics that were cutting edge, that's where you had to go.
What was available on the Big Blue Machine? When I see those on eBay, they want a lot of money for them, and somebody puts in Super Turbo,
Hmm.
but I've only seen those with, I think, just Super Street Fighter 2 is the only time I've seen a Big Blue
Yeah.
natively, I guess.
Champion Edition was big. Like the second, I want to say the second iteration of Big Blues was big for Champion Edition, and I do remember seeing that as a kid and playing Champion Edition on that. I know there's some other dedicated game. Well, not dedicated, but they were almost like standard. They came along with the cabinet, like they were a one for one. There's a really good thread out on the Killer List of Video Games forum, and somebody like broke down all the different versions of Big Blue and the games that came out at the time. It kind of matches up the production time period for the cabinet with the game that came out, and you
Mm.
can kind of go through the list and see because there are different versions of Big Blues and they put different games in them.
I think it is tough to come to get information on that because that wasn't something that was told to people like in the
No,
public. You wouldn't see magazines talking about, oh, hey, Capcom's got the CPS3 out now.
right.
Like I didn't even know what that was until I started adding games to a Super Nintendo Classic so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Agreed. Yeah, I mean, you knew it was an arcade game that, and you, because that was a dream at that point.
Yeah,
Like,
it arcade was like the blanket. That's an arcade game. When I was young, we didn't even call them video games. It was we're playing Nintendo.
yep.
And
Oh,
maybe that
yeah.
applied even if you're playing something else. I don't think I see. For me, I can't remember the NES not being in my life, but I must have got an NES late, like 88 or 89, and it was probably about $100 at that point,
Yeah.
which I thought at to if you're telling me 4-year old me whatever it that $100 gets you an NES, then that's like the milestone of okay, so $100 is a lot of money or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure those came to the US probably at maybe 200 with a robot,
Oh,
something like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
uh, which in 85 with that's that's a lot to spend on a kid's toy, you
Oh,
know.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know when I got the Nintendo. It wasn't right away. I had the Atari 2600 and I had that for, I mean, that was given to me for Christmas when I mean, I wasn't even in school yet. I
Was
was,
that passed on like
no, it was a
it was
Christmas
new?
gift. Yeah,
Oh,
it
okay.
was a Christmas gift, and but it was like 80. I want to say it was like 83 or 84 that I got that, And
That's
then
right at the collapse.
if-
Yeah.
yeah, so it was probably like a closeout price or something,
Did you
but
get ET with it?
of course I did. Yeah.
Oh,
But I thought it was great as a kid. I didn't know any better.
yeah. I didn't know about the old Atari until sometime later. I was at a daycare that had I think an Intellivision or a ColecoVision. I get those mixed up. I'd have to see it again to be able to differentiate.
Yeah.
And they also had a Vectrix,
Oh wow.
which
Yeah,
if I think the Vectrix is a really exciting thing to collect
it is.
because there is a limited. I think there are actually people making new games for it.
I wouldn't surprise
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
but it's a limited achievable library, and it has some uh, advanced graphics with the vector and over raster,
Mhm.
so you can't truly emulate it the way. I mean, I'm sure it seems like blasphemy for me to be playing bootleg Metal Slug in a video on the Super Nintendo controller, but you can't do that with the Vectrix so much.
No.
It's not going to be the same experience unless you actually have. I guess you could get a vector display somewhere, and
Right.
hell, that'd probably be more expensive than finding a Vectrix.
Yeah. Yeah, and those have gone up in price too. Like the last few that I've seen over, even in the last like 2 or 3 years, people just they want so much money for those now that
Well, people make cool videos on YouTube about stuff. It drives the price up. I mean, I'm sure you're
yeah.
familiar with the Angry Video Game Nerd. If he talks about
Yeah.
something, it goes up on eBay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it puts a lot of his collection further out of reach, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and that's if are you trying to aim for completion in SNK stuff? And you also play some new SNK things. I remember you had a video on the what was it where they made everybody a hot chick and they had to
Oh
fight.
yeah. The SNK heroines. Yeah. It's okay. I mean, I think everybody it's just kind of
And do
it's
you
a
play
modern
Smash
game.
Brothers now that they're adding SNK?
I I don't have Smash Brothers. I'm actually not a big Smash Brothers fan. I just never was. I
I've
don't know
never
why.
played Smash Brothers
Oh
myself.
wow, that makes me feel a lot better because I've played it and I never got even like when it first was like fresh on N64. I just never got the allure of that.
When
I don't
that
know.
came to N64, that was around the time of like Mario Party, or maybe a little after, something like that. I was already going away from the N64 to PlayStation
Yeah,
because the aside from with very few exceptions, Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye, 007, it seemed like the PlayStation was for the teenagers more, and like the kids stuff was on the Nintendo. Like they didn't have a lot that seemed appealing. I would see kids bring their magazine to school. Oh, check out Resident Evil 2. It's like, oh, they're putting that in a video game. The first time I played Resident Evil 2 and there's like a cop dying in front of you, I'm like, whoa,
yeah,
this is not Mario. Like this is
no,
not, but I didn't realize that there were horror games before that so much.
yeah. I mean, just a few years prior to that, you're arguing about whether or not Mortal Kombat can have blood in it, to come home to Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then it's, a few years, just a few years, you're making that leap.
I haven't
And
played Mortal Kombat recently, and I haven't played Street Fighter because they made it a PlayStation exclusive. But I think that those have gone down some weird divergent path where uh, I was watching Bloodsport the other night. You know about the theory that Johnny Cage is
oh yeah,
Jean Claude
supposed to
Van
be
Damme
Van
in
Damme. Yeah,
Bloodsport. Had they're going with the digitized graphics. They could have gotten Van Damme to play Van Damme in that, and that would have worked out for a time. But but something falls through, I guess, and so he ends up being Guile, doing the same thing with Street Fighter, the movie, the game,
yeah,
playing a character in the game. But if you had gotten Jean Claude Van Damme, do you think they would have stuck with the digitized graphics longer? Because to me, that series it just doesn't matter without that look anymore. Once it went to 4, I really lost interest. It went to polygons, and I mean, you could tell me whatever's more advanced now. It's gone to where it's so self-aware of the violence that it's now done jokingly
yeah,
more so than seriously. In the first 2 games, maybe even 3 games, the violence in it is like it's violent to taunt somebody and to to be like combat. Like, okay, it's Mortal Kombat. Now you're having fun watching the X-ray shots of spleen shots or who knows
Right.
things. You think they
Yeah.
could have, if they had Jean-Claude Van Damme as Johnny
Yeah.
Cage, that would have changed the landscape. He would have been Johnny Cage in the movie, surely.
Yeah, it would have been awesome. I mean, I was a huge Van Damme fan. I loved all that when I was a kid. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say like with because I know they still do kind of like even nowadays they kind of who's the guy from The Walking Dead that they just kind of they used him
Oh,
as the
with the
model
bat.
for yeah,
He's in.
and
No,
they try to
he's
they
in
use it.
Tekken, right? Tekken 7. They added him. It's like these fighting games. It's a grab bag of license. We want
Yeah,
to get
they
the Predator. We want to get Jason. Okay, but you can get the Terminator. We're going to go after this guy.
yeah.
Here's things you remember. Let's put them in the game.
Yeah, and they try to like make them look like that by texture mapping and whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know when 4 came out. I actually, to be honest with you, I was pretty surprised when all the stuff came out for Mortal Kombat 11 because I was like 11. Like what happened to the previous
No,
8?
when
I
I
didn't
saw
even
it,
know.
I think there's a Mortal Kombat 9.
Yeah,
I thought I heard about it the other day in a video. I know there was a 10 because I would see that X that would show up,
right.
and I was like, "There's was there a Mortal Kombat 5?" Like I hadn't heard of Mortal Kombat after 4.
Right, I agree. No, I hadn't heard that either. And that's when everyone was talking about 11 coming out. Like I had no idea. I felt like I missed out on the last like 15 years maybe because I remember 4. 4 had, I remember the artwork and everything on the cabinet for that, but after
That's
that,
it. That's a pretty common cab, I feel like,
it is.
because
Yeah.
there was another arcade that came up my area, smaller than one I previously mentioned. They've got Mortal Kombat 4, so they say they have Mortal Kombat on their website. And you get there and you're like, okay, well at least they got 1 or 2. No, no, not trilogy, not nothing like that. We got Mortal Kombat 4, which is like, all right, I guess we're gonna play Simpsons,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, four was one of the last arcade games I played at an arcade in the 90s. Um, there's so many things that I just even have a hard time finding anybody who knows about them. Like there was a game with it was probably called Tokyo Tanks. It was like you're in downtown Tokyo. It was like your virtual racing machine, wherein you sat next to somebody and you're in like the shared environment, like you're linked up, and you had
Yeah.
tanks and you run and you just drive around shooting them. It would look so simple and redundant today, but all those kind of things, it was so mind blowing. Every graphic change, you come back in 3 months and the graphics on some new machine would just blow your mind
Yeah.
every time. It was such a sweet feeling.
Yeah, I agree. Like that whole quantum leap. I was actually just talking with somebody at work about that. Like that those leaps would happen like every. I mean, it seemed like every 6 months in some cases that it was just progressing that fast, and you're watching things develop so quickly. And now I don't know. I think that stuff still happens, but I don't know. It's over a longer period of time until you see like dramatic differences like that.
The 90s console war had machines becoming old quickly.
Yeah.
What was it like? Maybe in 6 months, it looked like the Saturn was dead already.
Oh yeah.
But, and in my perspective, it didn't seem like things stuck around very long but it's like, okay, well the Super Nintendo's still chugging along. We'll just wait it out till Nintendo 64 gets here. All these machines coming and going, and so many things you haven't even heard of.
Yep.
I remember seeing Philips CDI Radio Shack and
Yeah.
not being impressed. 3DOs, no one ever had a 3DO, but I think I've seen. Did you have one
Yeah. I did. I
back in
actually
the day?
Yeah, I sold off. That's actually a bad memory in some ways
Did
because
you have the Panasonic?
yeah, I sold
Oh,
off my, it was the first price drop. So, obviously it came out, I want to say it was like retail, it was like 6.99, something
it was
like that.
steep. I
Ridiculous.
think it was more. It might be the most expensive original MSRP on a North America console.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's high. So I ended up I had all my NES collection and I kept a lot of I mean I was anal even as a kid. I kept all my boxes, my books
I
and
couldn't do that.
everything.
I can't
I had
find it an NES or an SNES box. It can't be
yes.
done.
So I had all those, and I had there's a neighbor who wanted to buy them, and I was like, oh, I really want that 3DO, because in my mind I'm thinking like the 3DO I thought was going to be, and it was touted like it was going to be what PlayStation eventually was.
So this was probably in 94 before hearing of a PlayStation.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and it was the first price drop. I want to say maybe I was in the middle of high school, so maybe like 95. I don't know, somewhere in there in the middle, like 95-ish maybe.
Mhm.
Um, but I
Okay, if I
sold off
saw a
a
3DO in 95, I wouldn't necessarily think the way I would today. Oh, well, that's not going to work. That's not as powerful as the PlayStation.
no,
It really seemed like they were neck and neck at the time. They had
yeah.
the same
I mean,
games coming, you know?
so I mean, what I had to compare it to was the Sega CD, and because that was the
Oh, yeah,
other
that's a lot better
platform.
than the CD. Like
Because yeah, because it's a CD based,
on
system,
16,
and
16
now I'm
bit system,
yeah. So now I'm
uh,
going to compare it to this, and wow, look how much more amazing this is. And so I just thought like that's what I have to have. That's the next thing. And I sold off all these complete inbox NES games that I had, and um, oh man, and 3DO. I mean, you can kind of see like right here above my thumb, I still have some games that I saved from it, and I don't know how many's back there. Maybe 20 or so, and
are
I
those
still have
the
the console.
blue at the bottom?
That's the Sega CD on the bottom,
I
and on the
thought so,
top
yeah.
here, this is
I
the
don't think I've seen
3DO.
3DO boxes before to
Yeah,
know what they look like.
they're long boxes,
That's
most of
like
them.
what the Sega CD and the Saturn had, early Saturn games in North America, longer boxes with the what
So
sponge in them.
so the Sega, yeah, sort of. These are actually like the boxes are actually cardboard boxes that are
Oh, so it's
tall,
like
and then
the old PC games.
yeah, similar. Yeah,
Okay.
and I mean it's and you open it up, the flap, and then you've got in the bottom there's a place to stick the CD, and on the top is where the booklet was, if you can picture
Oh,
that. So
yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah,
that's different. Yeah. Because
so
what everybody else was doing, they were moving towards looking like CD jewel cases.
yep,
But the Saturn, were they thinking, hey, if we make our box bigger, it'll make our games seem bigger,
yeah.
and then
I
people
mean,
will get that instead of the PlayStation? Only it didn't work.
right. Yeah, I don't know. Like
There wasn't
that's
like a lot of purpose behind that. I didn't
no,
think.
and those things are so fragile; they just cracked all the time. Like that's all you find are those cracked cases.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not like I threw them or hit them or anything. They're just all hinges broken all the
Yeah,
time.
yep.
But do you think that anybody made a big misstep in? Uh, Obviously, if you have a super expensive console, it's going to be hard to beat Nintendo when kids are calling video games Nintendo.
Yeah.
It looks like Sega was really the closest anybody came to knocking off Nintendo at a time where they were so dominant.
Yeah.
And then I guess one could say Sony did, but it's like they're not competing anymore.
Yeah, it's weird how that kind of unfolded, isn't it? I mean, I kind of feel that way too.
Do you feel like that the Switch is the plus system? Like I'm an Xbox player and I have a Switch. And so that's Nintendo's gambit, is to be like, okay, you can be team PlayStation, you can be team Xbox. Also get our device because it has that on the go feature, right?
Yeah, and yeah, if you want to play Mario, you have to buy this. Like, because Mario's awesome, and that's pretty much the Mario's rooted in gaming history. So if you want to play it, you have to buy this. Yeah, it's interesting how that kind of has I don't know. I'm so out of. I'll be honest. I'm so out of touch with modern gaming, like PS4 and Xbox One, and all the PS5 stuff that I saw like announced, people talking about. I'm so out of touch with that. I don't know if people cross over or not, to be honest with you.
I think that despite these things costing more money now, it seems like everybody can afford them for some reason. Like if you're a crack addict, somehow you're going to get your crack today.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah,
if you're a gamer, somehow, even if you're poor, jobless, you don't have parents, you live in a gutter, you will have a PlayStation 4 and an
yeah.
Xbox One somehow.
Yeah.
See,
I didn't eat today, but I got my pre-order.
my thinking is that Microsoft doesn't want to be in the console wars anymore. Okay, so they put the Xbox out there, they can make some money somehow with it, but not all the money. They would rather convert Xbox players into PC players, where they could control. Okay, now you have to buy some things from us. to do it that way. Though I guess point could be made, people play on Steam or whatever. There'll have
Right.
to be something Microsoft for them to get you to. So if they can ease their way to convert console players into PC players and you leave just one console on the market, that's not a healthy thing for games, I don't feel like.
Right. No, I hear you. And I know Xbox for a while, like they weren't making money on that system, right? Like the first
The
Xbox, the
very first
360,
one, and
like
even the 360, I always felt it was a good strategy to be a loss leader on those consoles, because you needed the console to be superior for a number of years. This thing needs to be able to play good games for 5 years or so, and that generation lasted a long time because of other setbacks in the economy. The current gen, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, I don't think those were loss leader models. I think that those they made profit on, and that made them weaker than they probably should have been to start with. They could have probably made them stronger consoles and gotten more out of them for a longer period of time or something. But you're supposed to want to make all your money on the back end on peripherals and software. They don't
yeah.
seem to be that concerned about that now. They want to make the money on the hardware too.
Yeah, I agree. That's weird. And we were just talking about the 3DO, and that was one of the things that really like was different about their financial model was they were trying to do the opposite where they were licensing that hardware model out to other companies. That's why you saw like Sanyo like pop up and make their own 3DO.
Yeah.
There
I
were some
think
others
that was the
too.
only one I'd seen. I mean, I
Yeah.
knew you would see advertised the Panasonic. You wouldn't necessarily see the Panasonic flagship version, you know. And
Yeah.
what did it have? Did it have like RGB SCART or something? And the other one didn't. There was like some kind of difference.
I don't know. Well, I know the FZ1, which is what I have, it has the front loading door, and then
Yes,
it
right.
it only has S video on the back of it,
Hmm.
and I think there's composite too, but there's S video. Um, yeah, I don't know. Then there's the clamshell one, like that the top loader type thing where the lid pops open,
Yeah,
and
right.
yeah,
Yeah, there was there was a Gold Star. Maybe that was that
yeah,
one. Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah,
now they're LG. Lucky Gold Star merged. Everybody knows them as LG.
yeah,
And mostly they
yeah.
make what, televisions? It's
Refrigerators too, right?
Yeah. It's so weird to see like in the 90s, Panasonic and Sony were like such huge brands for like quality electronics.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I've got Panasonic TV. It must be a good one. I got Sony Walkman. That's got to be a good one. Now, and if any kids out there are watching this, which by the way, I wish I had a restriction on my channel. You had to be 30 to watch, because I got all these kids harassing me all the time because I didn't like some game that for weebs or some crap. You're in a good spot because you have an older crowd. You're not going to get young people looking up SNK from 1990
Right.
stuff. You're going to get mature people who can comment and articulate their points, who know that your is different than YOU apostrophe RE. Like they know their grammar and stuff. Like you have a good
Yeah.
crowd. I have this mixed bag channel of just whatever I want to talk about, and that's the only rule. And it
Yeah.
just attracts so many weird people. Some good ones, but just too many weirdos. Uh,
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. I mean I certainly get I'm not immune to that either. I get that random stuff. Yeah, I was talking with another YouTuber kind of on the side, and he was like he's bigger than I am considerably, and he was saying like just ban those people. Don't even bother commenting, don't even bother trying to just ban and
do
block them.
you read all comments, or do you try to read and reply?
I do try to reply to almost everybody, which it's getting harder to do,
Yeah,
and I
it's
don't.
getting to that point with me also.
Yeah, and I don't always have anything like creative to say. Sometimes people will comment and just say, "Hey, this is a really great video," or and it's a genuine comment. They're being nice, and I definitely appreciate that. But it's like, thanks. I don't really have anything like
Yeah,
to
if
further to
I'm
add.
I'm not only getting to the point where I had told people I'm no longer going to read the comments because it feels like to go forward, you can't be spending that much time being your own secretary
Yeah.
on YouTube. And there's so little to get out of that interaction. I don't think people value it as much as I would if I was a kid. Whoa, the
Yeah.
creator of this thing I like actually responded. That would have been cool in the 90s. Granted, we didn't have this
Yeah. Right.
type of thing, but I don't think kids value any of that stuff that would have blown minds back then. Like I could watch any movie from the 80s or 90s. And okay, so I watched Starship Troopers
Yeah.
a couple days ago. I've got a commentary coming out next week. There's a video chat in it, and the promise of telecommunications in the mid 90s was that we were going to sit in booths and do video chats like this,
Yeah. Right.
and that this was going to be the normal thing to do. Now we all have phones and we can do that. And what do we do if someone calls? Turn off the video. Okay, let's talk. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I
I
just had that conversation actually. Because we were talking, we actually use this for work a lot recently since the whole, pandemic thing.
understandable.
And, we kind of got to this point where people are like, do I need to be on camera? Like I've been talking on, and I said, no, like, I don't need to see you right now. I'm trusting you're doing your job and, whatnot. Audio has worked fine for me for the last 40 plus years. I just don't need it. And I sound like an old man saying that, but there is a sense of, it's like you get on and then you got like, if you have multiple people on one of these, you've got all these tiles, it's like a 6x5. It looks like the Brady
Brady
Bunch
Bunch, yeah.
layout. Yeah,
Which that'll date you to mention the Brady Bunch.
that's all right.
That'll
I'll
date
take,
you to mention the Brady Bunch, even as a 1995 movie. That will
yeah,
date you. And I have a difficult time believing that 1995 was a long time ago.
yeah,
To me, that was the year where uh, I remember my memory of so much is so clear in starting in 95. It was like sort of like from that point forward, we're in the present.
yeah,
And now I
yeah,
look back at stuff, remember the promise of 2015 from Back to the Future Part 2, and you're
yeah,
thinking, okay, 2015 was 5 years ago.
yeah,
I can't think of 2015's the future of Back to the Future 2 as the old, the
yeah.
past. Like
Like Blade Runner. Think about that.
Blade Runner was last year,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's in the past.
I could be wrong, but I don't think we have a Nexus 6 replicant walking around.
No, we're not anywhere close, I don't think,
Not
as far as I know.
not remotely close.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we don't have the console wars dragging up the well, I guess the graphics have gotten so good quickly afterwards. We need a console war to keep the graphics being good?
I don't think it's about that anymore,
Graphics don't wow me, and special effects don't wow me in movies the way they used to.
Not at all.
20
I,
years
I,
ago, you could see a movie for the special effects, and now you expect them to be good.
yep. And I'm almost turned off by like an onslaught of CGI. Like I'm almost turned off by that. If I see all that, it's just like,
I was
just,
watching Cliffhanger from
oh yeah,
93, which
yeah,
I played on the Sega CD back in the day.
yeah,
Brutal second stage, possibly the hardest second stage in all of video games. I never beat the second stage. Granted, I will, with the asterisk, I didn't own the Sega CD. It was my best friend who I befriended because he had the Sega CD. Jokingly, I was best friends with anyways, but uh, that movie looks so good because they went out and they brought cameras to places that had
yeah,
mountains, and they
yeah,
had actors stand, and they had amazing backdrops. And yes, there's some miniatures here and there. There are some they don't go with the CGI, but what they'll do is there'll be like a helicopter flies by, and then like, okay, it's not Stallone anymore. It's the stunt double. There's like
yep,
a wipe there that you don't notice when you see it in the theater for the first time. You blow it up on Blu-ray or Netflix or whatever. I think I was watching on Hulu. Now you can notice these things. So what?
yeah.
I think it still looks better than if they'd done it today, because I know damn sure if they make Cliffhanger today, they're not going outdoors.
No,
It's going to be a green environment, and you're going to see the fakest looking everything. When everything's fake, it just draws me so much further out of the movie.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I have a friend who
Oh, well,
he
look at me. I have a friend.
no, no, no. Listen, it's relevant. He secures sets for films, and he was on Crystal Skull, and he told us when he had locked down at this location in Hawaii, and they were supposed to do, I guess it was the scene where the waterfall scene in that movie. I'm trying to remember like what,
Yeah, they hit
but
3 waterfalls. Yeah.
right. So he had locked down the set, had got all the permits, had it locked down for a week, and I guess was out there for a couple days, got a phone call and said they're not coming. They just said forget it. We're just gonna CGI it. And he said he knew, like, just kind of those types of decisions. He said I just knew the movie was, it just wasn't going to be great because they were cutting corners everywhere they
That
could.
was a movie on the, in a sort of slippery cusp of where they honestly needed less CGI. They needed more ambition to get the stunts right. And oh well, we can't use stunts for that. Okay, we don't maybe need the Jeep to springboard off of the tree into the water. Like maybe we could have found a different way to do that.
Yeah.
They went too far with
Yeah.
that in places.
Yeah, it was just really disappointing. He said he just knew, like, and that was a while ago too. Then
2008.
yeah,
Mm.
so I mean, we were, well, still relatively young, I guess, but he said like that was probably like his biggest moment working out there was getting to see Harrison Ford like with the fedora and the whip, and he said it was iconic, and it was like he was starstruck, but then at the same time knew that the movie just, he just had that vibe that it was not going well, and he said it kind of broke his heart.
Ouch. Yeah. To you don't want to meet your heroes because you're just going to get disappointed, I guess.
Yeah.
But I would think at some point somebody would be like, "Hey, I've got to get Arnold Schwarzenegger an Oscar somehow." Like, I mean, you would think that like there'd be this like weird respect for the people who are making movies now were inspired in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
and that they would try to do something to elevate their heroes, but they don't. Instead, they're like, I guess we're making the 20th Avenger movie
Yeah.
instead because that's where the money is. I want to talk to you about Lily playing games.
Yeah.
I saw a few of those videos.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about how that came about and maybe describe what that shoot is like? How long do you spend playing the game? Have you edited it down? Things like
Yeah.
that.
It needs edited a lot usually. Um, yeah, I mean, really, it just kind of grew out of her saying, like, she's like, I've never played a Neo Geo game. Like, she'll throw that out, like, just casually. And, like, when her, like,
It's like you
friends,
just didn't allow her. There's all these Neo Geos, and she just didn't have the chance,
yeah,
right?
right. Like, as if there's just no opportunity. She'll throw that out to friends and family, people that like visit, and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've never played an arcade game." I'm like, "What? Like you have like there's machines in the basement. Like what are you talking about? Like how could this be?" And so she had never played any of these games. I mean, she was really familiar with Super Nintendo. She's also 7 years younger than I am. So it's a little bit of a different time period for like gaming, and,
Well, to
especially when
stereotype a little with the girls in the gaming, I
it
noticed she
is.
mentioned Princess Peach, and it's
Yeah.
always like, okay, if a girl that doesn't isn't a girl gamer and not a gamer girl, I
Yeah.
guarantee you she or has played Mario Kart, some version of Mario Kart,
Yeah.
probably a Pokemon, and now if younger, 20s ish, I would even say the Animal Crossing.
Oh yeah, it seems very
There's
popular.
that seems
Yeah.
to be the trinity of girls that don't play games are playing these games or are
Yeah.
familiar with them. There's
Yeah.
some kind of weird appeal to that. Like I know girls who don't talk about games at all. Oh well, I got the new Pokemon. It's like what? Oh, what are you doing over there? I'm doing Pokemon Go. I'm like really? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like yeah. So she's playing the games and
Mm-hmm.
it's hilarious because I I from your I can relate to where you are in the video.
Yeah.
And when if I got my mom to play a game, it would be the most frustrating thing in the world. But it might be fun to not be that person and watch the
Yeah.
mayhem.
Yeah. That's
But while you're
yeah.
sitting next to them, it's brutal. It's
Yeah,
so
it is.
aggravating.
Yeah, and I kind of, I kind of knew that that might be interesting to watch. And I also, that's not fake. A lot of people don't know me. Obviously, people that watch don't know me, except for a handful of people that watch it are friends and family. But um, I don't have a lot of patience. Like, I'm not a very patient person.
Well, we can't
Um,
tell that in your regular when you're alone. People
yeah,
can't tell I'm a major asshole when I'm not being an asshole to people.
right, right.
But so like I guess I mean I don't know if our real personalities come out on YouTube because we're such a controlled environment. There's editing everywhere, you
That's
know?
right. And it goes back to your point about like comments and stuff too, because people will make judgments and assume things about you based on watching one thing that you said in a video out of your entire, 40 plus years of being on the planet. It's like, I'm going to hold on to that one thing and you're an asshole because of it. And it's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay. Like,
that's me right now. I
yeah.
get okay, I'll bring this up because I bet none of these 12-year-old weebs are even listening to this point. I clowned on Hollow Knight because I just think it's fairly mediocre, if not a bad game, from my experience with Hollow Knight. And you probably haven't even heard of the title because it's a new thing that kids evidently it's more popular than I thought. So now I kid you not, 60,000 people are telling me you need to kill yourself and get off YouTube and all this stuff
Lovely.
every day because I didn't like a game. And you know what's weird about that is I don't think that we took it as personal back then. If someone didn't say, if I like Street Fighter and you like Mortal Kombat, okay, we're not going to fight over it. But
No.
now people attach themselves to these things like Hollow Knight put food on their table and they have to defend it with to and they do these kind of things because you can now get the admiration of somebody in an odd way that you probably shouldn't be able to. Oh,
Yeah.
hey, Hollow Knight guys, I want to warn you about this guy. And oh, by the way, make sure you like my comments and all this stuff because and give me the karma points on the Reddit and I want to get my sub count up on Instagram and all this stuff because there's some kind of reward system for being a dick to people.
I'm sure there's probably been studies done on that, like psychosocial experiments. It's almost like, the way a lunchroom in high school or middle school would divide by table. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like that has moved to a broader type of thing online with people. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's something we didn't go through. I always comment. I make this comment at home, and Lily will call me out. It's old man Joe talking, but similar to what you're saying, hiding behind a keyboard and making comments too. It's so fascinating to me, especially when gaming or you're online. Because I would say, like, if you were in the arcade, back in the day, you didn't say shit like that, like you weren't going to make a comment to
No,
somebody because
the internet has emboldened people
yeah,
to
you better be
it's
able to back it up because you were saying that stuff in person back then,
yeah,
and
the social barriers, there's a combination with you can use the internet to hide behind in so many different creative ways and get what you want and feel good that you ruined somebody's day for the hell of it and then get some kind of weird social credit from somebody else like oh yeah thanks for warning us about that guy over there. I turned off likes and dislike viewing on my channel a few months ago all the time. Yeah, because you turn off the likes and dislikes or the comments on this video, I'm coming to this video talking about something totally different, shoes or something, to tell
yeah,
you how much you suck for your Hollow Knight review. Like, oh yeah, you're the first person to do this. I didn't know that. Let me just check the 60,000 other comments I got.
yeah, yeah,
But the weird thing is, like, I turn off likes and dislikes. Okay, I'm the bad guy because YouTube allows me to do that.
yeah,
Go watch Netflix. Remember
yeah.
when Amy Schumer had a comedy special bomb so hard they
Oh
got
yeah,
rid of the like dislike
yeah,
meter, and now it's like there's a 98% chance you're might like this. Like,
yeah,
there's a
yeah.
weird thing about it, and people didn't. I mean, they had a fit for a week, and now they don't even notice. When
Right,
you go to a movie theater, you can't see the comments about how much it sucks right below the movie, like closed captioning.
right.
So why should I have to put up with it?
Yeah,
I'm doing more work than these people sitting in the green screen, hardly doing anything, and then shoving it all off into Thailand to go do all the post production and
right.
get for pennies. Ah, geez, it's so easy to make the bad guy into whoever is available to talk to.
Yeah.
Like oh yeah, this guy replies, I can be a dick to him, and I know he read it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
YouTube. Do you
Yeah,
feel like I really like what you did with your channel, but where you have your audience and we know what to expect from you, even if it's going to be, hey, here's me cleaning the insects out of my new cab, or, right? But it's, it's going to be related on that subject matter. But do you feel like you can't talk about some other things? I know in one of your Lily playing videos, you said she liked the newest Star Wars movie
oh yeah.
and that was heinous or something. I haven't seen the newest Star Wars movie because I hated
Oh, good for you.
the last two, not depending on what, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, that
Okay.
those last two, I hated those so much that there's no way I'm not gonna. It'll have to be shown for free or something, and I'll need nothing else better to do to watch this third one.
It's
Okay,
brutal. Yeah.
you said that one's even worse than those, which I'm thinking, how could that possibly be? Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking those people. I mean, you get on Twitter and there's so many people standing by those movies, like they
Yeah.
saw a different movie than I did. Like,
Yeah.
how is this working?
Yeah, and it's almost like that whole it that's a weird thing too, where you can't have, or you can have a negative opinion, but if you do, then you're gonna have to answer for it. And it's like this whole, you know what I mean? You have to have this glowing. I feel like that happens a lot. You have to have this glowing response to things, and I could sit and articulate. I just don't like it. I didn't think it was good. I thought Force Awakens was a rehash of New Hope, and
Yeah, large
uh,
and some other pieces
right.
here and there. Yeah.
And it's just kind of like I never really felt attached to any of the characters. I thought they were all very hollow, right up and through the third one, or whatever number that actually is. What, nine, I
I
think.
thought that people could agree what a good movie was back in the 90s.
Yeah,
I didn't have friends who go, "Oh, I hate you because you like Terminator 2 and this group of kids doesn't." Like, no, we kind of all like it. Like
yeah.
now movies are so divisive.
They are. Yeah, and a part of that I think comes from like all the sequels and the reboots and everything that you're seeing too, where you've got they're intentionally trying to play to that existing crowd that they know they have. And it's like, well, if we label it this and call it a sequel and put it out there, then those people come see it. And even if they don't like it, they're going to watch it, then they're going to talk about it, and then it's going to create, and I think a lot of that happens too. And I don't know. I do like a good original story from time to time, or new material, things that aren't reboots, aren't sequels,
I think
I
if you talked about movies on your channel, you'd get a lot of hate from it because when I had a channel that was strictly movie reviews, I could get a new subscriber and a new fan until they disliked the next review.
yeah,
So, okay, I'm on board with you on this. You didn't like the new Quentin Tarantino movie. Now I hate you.
yeah.
It's better to not have them in your life in the first place than to make them an enemy.
Yeah.
So I just
it,
attract you just attract more enemies when you have a hardline stance about
and
stuff.
it's weird too, right? Because like you could tell me, I obviously I live with Lily, it's my wife, who's telling me she likes the Star Wars movies. It hasn't ruined our marriage. Like, it's okay that she has a different opinion. I'm happy to hear her out on it. I still think she's wrong, but like, she's allowed to have that opinion that she likes it. I dislike it, and it's a discussion. Like, it's not a, oh, I'm never gonna like talk to her again
Well,
or
there's a
watch this
thing
guy
that's
again.
happened on the internet that has become it's like manifested into reality where like you can't disagree with friends. Like as soon as you disagree about anything, now they're the enemy.
Yeah,
Uh, what in the 90s, Republicans and Democrats I thought got along pretty well, civilly anyways. And now if this guy's a Democrat and you're a Republican, well then I guess you can't be in the same room together. It's like the Crips and the Bloods. I don't get it. I don't know
yeah.
why everybody had to take things so personally all of a sudden.
Yeah, things are very black or white, it seems, with most things, even outside of politics, like you're alluding to.
Do you think you could talk about movies more? And if you go down that path, you're going to find that everybody's going to expect you to see a lot of movies. It's
Yeah,
essentially tripling your workload to
yeah,
have
and I
to
I
get
can't
into
do
another
that.
subject.
I have such a hard time even putting a video together on a weekly basis. I mean, part of the thing with like Lily and filming those things that we were talking about, it's relatively easy to do outside of some of the editing stuff. It's just sit down, let's play a game, let's have a conversation, and then we'll do like a best of 10-minute highlight reel, and it's easy for me to do as opposed to scripting something out and making sure I hit on the points that I want to talk about, and then filming all the B-roll, filming me. It's relatively easy to do. To add something else in, I mean, I love movies. I love TV shows and 90s TV and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like I could, I'd be happy to talk. I don't think I could produce it though. Like I barely have enough time to do what I'm doing.
I keep trying to find a few different ways to add a wrinkle to something. Like maybe if I'm going to talk about movies, I'm going to use this character and do some animation thing about it. And like an old guy, I only in the last year started incorporating the footage in, because I
Mm-hmm.
figured out how to get around YouTube's identification thing, where if you use clips, you got to keep them like 8 seconds or less,
Yep.
and then slice them up in a way to tell the story as you're describing what's wrong with the scene or something like that. Otherwise, YouTube will have your ass, unless you're a big enough player, and then do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't like how there's two sets of rules around
There
here,
are.
but
That's very apparent recently.
you have no choice though, because like where do you go if you're making this kind of content not on YouTube, you're not getting an audience.
Not really. No. I mean, I tried briefly. I tried even like Twitch, and that Twitch was taking pre-recorded videos, not just streaming stuff. And I
Did they
thought,
still
well,
do that?
I don't know. I'll be honest, I haven't signed into Twitch in probably over a year and a half, maybe. I don't know. But it
uh
just wasn't viable.
is there a way for you to stream arcade play on Twitch?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to do that. I don't have any of those methods like in-house, but there's a way to. I was actually talking to there's a guy named Will at Retro Hacks that does repair work and mods and stuff, and he's based out of Ohio. He's a really nice guy, and he was talking to me about building basically like an adapter that would break out the audio and video for me, and then it would be easier to do that. Um, I don't know. I
But
don't know
then
how
you
often I
also
would
have
do
to
it
have a
though.
camera showing you on the
That's the thing.
controls, right?
Yeah, so it's like I need to capture that, and then I need to film me, and like, do people want to see my face? Do they want to see like my hands? Like, it just becomes a whole thing. It's a tough thing to do. There's a couple people that do pinball that I've seen too that are really good at doing
There's
that, where they have a
pinball on
camera
Twitch.
that have like the camera facing down and then a camera on them. And
Hmm.
that's pretty cool. Like, cause the first time I saw that, I thought it was
I
awesome.
wouldn't
Like,
mind having a pinball machine or two, because there is no emulating pinball, truly.
people try, there's those whole
Yeah.
LCD things. And I just like that kind of, to me, and again, this is where I get in trouble. We were talking about that because people will say, oh, you're gatekeeping this from me. I'm like, I don't care what you do. You do whatever you want. But
There is
I
no
don't,
gatekeeping when you don't own the production means to
I,
stop people from doing things
but I'm
like.
just right. But I'm saying like the concept of pinball is based in physics, and if you're emulating that on an LCD, that throws the whole idea of pinball out the window to me. You
Yeah,
know, I just don't.
I've never had any desire to play. Well, what, Windows 3.5 or had like a pinball thing. I think called it Tristan or something.
Okay,
So okay, well, if you're 8 and you don't have a pinball machine on hand, you don't have an iPhone, like, this is pinball for right now, though it's not actually pinball.
right.
uh, I see these like Kickstarters. Hey, we're emulating these classic pinball games. No, I mean, you can say you are. I don't know if I
Sure.
really believe it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it might be fun, and you might be into that, but again, to me, like pinball is like, I mean, that's not even video. It's you're not playing a video game. It's physics. It's all physics based, and
I have a
I
similar
don't.
issue with sports games and I've tried to explain this to people, and of course, I need to kill myself for even bringing it up. If you play a basketball game, NBA 2K, whatever, something, all right, you shoot the ball. It's like the game is tossing a coin to say whether or not the ball went in.
Yeah.
And that's not the way throwing a basketball through a hoop in reality works.
Right.
We may feel like there was a lucky shot. In a video game, it's actually a lucky shot. In reality, it's not. Therefore, something like basketball is the furthest away from sports to its video game counterpart.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I don't see the point of that. But there are so many people who they got their Xbox to play Madden. That's a waste of having an Xbox. You know.
Yeah. I I I've even I love NBA Jam, but I even feel that way about NBA Jam, right? Like, and that game we know, we were talking about Midway earlier,
Did you
and
see
that
my game of that from a year ago or something, where Shaq hits a 3-pointer, full court 3-pointer to win the game at the buzzer,
yeah, always like the
just
game's
because?
yeah, the game's programmed like whoever's behind gets to catch up. Like it's programmed that way.
Yeah, that even more brutal. What was it? Slam Dunk. It has a couple titles. You know, the in the Neo Geo NBA Jam, but it's 3 on
Oh,
3.
Street Slam, yeah.
That game, you have to hit every shot or you lose in the
Yeah.
second half because the computer will not miss at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brutally broken in the way that basketball wouldn't actually be played.
Yeah.
But you can have fun with it if you can't. I wouldn't be playing that competitively. I think competitive gaming. I don't like the idea of Fortnite being competitive. I think that you could team up on somebody and take somebody out. If you made it your point, you can make an ally in the middle of it, like the movie Battle Royale with the Japanese
Yeah.
kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You put a team together and go up against the transfer student, something like that.
Yeah.
I play a lot of Overwatch, and there's a competitive mode in that. But do bullets always fly in the same place? If not, then there is a luck factor to it. Now, strictly as probably the best genre for real true competitive, either racing or fighting or just fighting.
Yeah.
Because in racing, cars don't just break down like they do in reality.
Right.
So that might actually be better than the real sport as far as fairness.
Yeah.
In fighting games, there isn't. Ryu broke his fist. Well, I
Yeah.
guess you're
Yeah.
screwed now,
Yeah. Right.
right? That
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
Right.
One last thing. Can
Yeah.
you explain the Scarlet Sprite's name?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've always been a big DC Comics fan, and my favorite superhero is the Flash, Scarlet Speedster.
Oh my
R-
God. I
Yeah.
only saw that nickname today
Yeah.
because there
Scarlet
was
Speed.
news of Michael Keaton might be in the next Flash thing,
Oh
as
yeah,
it's
I
going to
did.
be
I
a
saw that.
Flashpoint tie-in.
Yeah.
And it said, and then in their little Entertainment Weekly said the Scarlet Speedster. And I'm like, I never heard him called that. Now
Yeah.
I'm hearing it today.
Yeah, yep. So that was always my go-to hero, as a kid, and I've got almost a full run of the Wally West era. It's my favorite Flash, and this is Scarlet Speedster. And I wanted to when I was putting the channel together, I got so hung up on like the name and what to call it, and I wanted something that alliterated, and um, yeah, I was like, all right, Scarlet Sprites, because
I
video games, a
figured
tie-in.
sprites as
Yeah,
that is a term one would use for the style of games in which you play.
yeah,
You,
sprite animation.
Scarlet
Yeah, for
Polygon now. Even do kids even say Polygon? Because I don't see polygons in today's games the way one would on a Sega Saturn. You know?
I don't think it's tracked the way it used to be.
Yeah. I thought Scarlet might have been okay. Is that the name of a board or something
Oh, I
in
see what
an
you're saying.
arcade, or
It's
is it because
nothing
he's a
creative.
ginger or something? Like I don't know.
Somebody asked me that on a live stream too, and I think they were pretty disappointed by the answer. It's not all that. There's not a big story behind it other than I have content. I got stuff I want to do. I want to put this channel together, and yep, that's the name, Scarlet
I
Sprites.
thought it might have even had something to do with Metal Slug because I
I'm
hear the Metal
gonna I'm gonna
Slug
make
so
up a
much,
better
you know?
story for the next time I'm asked.
Yeah, I don't. Is there a Flash logo somewhere on your channel art or anything like a hint?
No,
No.
no hints, nothing.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is a little disappointing, but I'm glad I know, and knowing's half the battle. All
That's
right.
right.
Thanks for hanging out with me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's great to actually talk to you in person.